everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Danei. Danei, thanks for joining us today. I'll jump into more of what you do, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Sometimes we'll bring on people that are working in the crypto industry, building products, but sometimes we don't, and it's interesting to get your perspective. Danei is in the Army, is that correct?
Correct?
Danei is in the Army, and we met at a crypto conference recently, Messari Mainnet, and it was interesting to get a different perspective from someone working in that sector. You've been in the Army for quite a while, is that right?
It's going on 10 years now. It doesn't feel like it, but
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously Army 10 years, but maybe anything you've done in the past that you can speak of, or and then we're going to jump into how you got involved and how you ended up at a Masari Mainnet crypto conference last week.
okay. So I joined the Army because me and my dad got into an argument. I had just graduated with a pre-legal studies degree at the University of West Florida. And he was like, okay, so, what law schools are you thinking about or what have you applied to? And I'm like, I don't really want to go. I interned at a law firm and it was a family law, probably the worst one to intern at. And I just didn't feel like law fit me. So we had an argument and he was like, you should join the military. And I was like, I'm too girly. I don't like their uniforms. I don't like people telling me what to do. And, here I am 10 years later. So
So how'd that conversation go? It seems like you were opposed to it. So what made you be like, okay, yeah.
I think I just wanted some time for one. That it was really scary for me to think about joining the military, and something about that was intriguing. It was like, well, if I can do it, like what does that say about myself or how does that expand myself? And then the more research I did, I realized that a lot of self-made businesses, like people that have passed on generational wealth to their children, especially back you know, post 1950s, they all had military experience. So my parents were Air Force. They didn't retire. They got out I think before I was like two or three. So I don't even remember them being in.
Hmm.
But I felt like there was value in joining. And I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I told my grandfather, I was like, I'm going to join the military. And he said, you can't, you're not going to make it. And that was all I needed to hear. And I was like, I'm going to do this.
Now let's accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So that's great. So you've been doing that for 10 years now, and I applaud you. And the one thing I like about that, that part of your history is the fact that most people would have gotten that pre-legal degree and been like, no matter what or how bad that internship was, I've already started it. I may as well finish it, right? When you realize that that wasn't the path you wanted to go down, it took a lot of courage to say, no, what, let's scrap that and do something else.
Yeah. And then 10 years later, here we are.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let's talk about your journey into the cryptocurrency space because you and I talked about some of your journey when we met in person and kind of how that played out, especially being in the army. So tell us a little bit like how did you get into the point to where you were like, I'm interested in this, I want to learn more, and obviously I'm sure you've been investing as well. So what was the catalyst that got you into that?
So the military, when I joined, the part I left out was I told them when I signed up, like, I want to go to Korea. And so they were saying, like, that's not how that works. You're going to be needs of the army. So wherever they want to send you, they're going to send you. And I'm like, well, they need to send me to Korea. So I'm really adamant about going. I was interested in the culture. Netflix at the time, they didn't really have a lot of interesting shows to watch, but they had like a lot of foreign films. And so I'd already been watching like Korean dramas and I was like, I'm going to Korea. So I went to Korea. I immediately disliked my unit when I was stationed there. A lot of good people. I didn't like the structure or the workload. And so I was like, I need to get out of the military. And so I was like trying to do startups. And I ended up at the Bitcoin Center in Itaewon. And what's
Mhm.
crazy about this is Itaewon had a tragedy where like over 150 people were killed, but the Bitcoin Center was right. next to that. So I remember watching that tragedy. I want to say it was in 2022.
Mm,
But before the tragedy, I was there. I think it was 2017, and right where it happened, there was used to be a Bitcoin center. It's not there anymore. And I was there visiting a group of people that I thought I was going to go in business with, and they showed me it was at the Bitcoin center. They showed me a Bitcoin ATM. It wasn't up at the time. Something was wrong with it, and they were like, "You should get into Bitcoin. Here's our white paper." And I didn't. It all went over my head. Like these guys were programming, their whole theme was we want people that work at McDonald's in the States to be able to invest in property in Dubai. And I was like, that sounds awesome. But I didn't understand, like, what's a blockchain? It sounds like Mario. Like, I don't know what's happening. So essentially, I did nothing. And I call that my first no.
mm,
Ironically, also in 2017, my younger brother, he was stateside with a girl he was dating, and they went to a house party or something, and some guy was talking about Bitcoin, and he was like, no one wants to talk about that, like fake money. And so that was his first no. So I watched it go up in, 2017, 2018. And then when it crashed back down, I think like the end of 2018, it was around like $3,000. And so I
yeah,
heard about it when it was like around 1,000. And
mm,
so all my friends in the States, they were like, Bitcoin's a scam, cryptocurrency is trash. But all I could see was I missed out because even though it went up to 20 and went down to three, I still knew about it. But way before, if I would have invested, I would have made a profit. And so I'm like, this is crazy. But I still didn't get in until 2020. I was live streaming. My friend called me. He was like the top, third or fourth top live streamer on an app. Meet Me, POF, and Scout. They kind of merged, and I think they were kind of trying to compete with Twitch or something. And so he was like, just get on the app and like live stream. I was live streaming about relationships, and someone mentioned cryptocurrency, and I canceled everything, and I was like, I'm sorry guys, we're going to switch and talk about this. And so I thought I was smart. I put together a group of people. We decided like each of us are going to read a book on cryptocurrency. We're going to teach ourselves in our community. And this guy came in and he was like, you guys are idiots. We're like week 3 in to like, like reading books and like giving briefs about the books. And he was
mm.
just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You should just jump in. And I was like, my bouncers were like, we're gonna kick him out, like we're gonna block him. And I'm like, wait, guys, why is he saying we're stupid? Like this is smart. We're studying and learning. And he was like, there's millions of applications, processes, and systems that you rely on every day that you don't even understand how it works. So why are you trying to learn about something? Just use it. And epiphany. So I made him my mentor, and here I am.
Oh, nice, nice. So, what you thought was an insult ended up being, an opening to really learn, and that's a great concept, right? Because you don't care, and the example I usually use is to operate a vehicle, right? To drive a vehicle, you don't care how a combustion engine works when you're driving your
Right.
vehicle. You just need to understand how to use it, right? How does it help you, and how do you use it?
Right.
So that's important, and so many people want to go down that rabbit hole of what is this technology, how does it work, and unless you want to get into coding engineering, you just need to be able to grasp the concept and not be able to explain how cryptographic functions work.
That's true.
Yep, yep. So that was, you said that was 2020 when you finally jumped in.
Yeah, I got on Coinbase and I bought my first Bitcoin. I think at the time Bitcoin was like 9,000, and I was like, wow, that's so much money.
Yeah.
But I had a basis. I started, my mentor kind of gave me, actually had two or three mentors because live streaming was kind of weird. It's very like direct. And so social media, a lot of times people post stuff and then people follow up, but live streaming is very like, it's quick and you're interacting with like a large group of people at one time. And
Yeah.
so we started attracting people that were into cryptocurrency. I didn't finish live streaming because I had to deploy to Afghanistan. But what was interesting is the people that were mentoring me, they had been into crypto for about, I think, 4 to 5 years was like the average. And so a lot of the YouTubers and information they were giving me, they had YouTubes like Ivan on Tech, Variable Bull, Crypto Casey, Crypto Dad. And so like I was going back watching all these videos, like learning from them. And as new people came, because you could just put cryptocurrency on your YouTube and during like 2021, you just got like a ton
Yeah.
of followers because it was trending, but
Yeah.
people didn't know what they were talking about. So I was reading white papers and, looking up like, well, how does this work? Not knowing how it worked, but I quickly learned like the books we were reading didn't even begin to scratch the surface. So it's just been an interesting journey.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. And, I love that the concept that you put together because it wasn't like you were like, okay, I'm alone. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna learn about crypto. Even when you were going down the path like that your mentor ended up stopping you going down. Yeah, I mean, you were leading. You were deploying resources. Like, okay, let's all try to figure this out together and mastermind and really like with the right direction, that could be a great concept, right?
Mm.
Really think you could learn a lot from doing that. So went down there. You did that. How has it been? Obviously, I mean, I know, from someone that's into Bitcoin and crypto, the conversation always comes up, and of course, it's a little different for me because I kind of wear the gear now, just so people see it and they ask questions. Because this is a recognizable brand, right? If I'm wearing any other crypto brand, most people don't even understand what that is. So I wear this to get the conversation started. You obviously couldn't do that in the army, right? So was there a point where you started sharing it with people that you worked with, and tell me how that went if you did?
Essentially, what happened is the more that I studied cryptocurrency and the more I started reading, because cryptocurrency was my intro to understanding money. And
Mm,
so, in order to really wrap your head around cryptocurrency, you kind of have to go back to discover, like, how do we even get where we were? And
yeah.
I did it because everyone was telling me, you're into fake money. And
Mm,
so, at the time, I was like, well, what is real money? And so, the more that I realized, like, what this is, and the technology and the things that it's going to enable, and then the historical technological advances, I was just I
mm,
did not go a day without drinking in, learning more information, or purchasing cryptocurrency. It was crazy. And so for about 2 or 3 years, I couldn't go any day without talking about it. The military at the time, uh, they were, I got mixed, like responses or reactions. A couple of my leaders warned me, like, you need to be careful. Like, I heard China's involved, but it wasn't anything that they were saying, like, oh, I personally did research on this and I'm telling you this. They were just watching mainstream news. And,
yeah.
like, mainstream news doesn't talk about crypto unless it's like, a bunch of people made a lot of money because it's up, and it's usually Bitcoin. Like you
Yeah.
said, they don't talk about the other ones, or Dogecoin because it's just like a meme coin.
Because of
So,
Elon.
yeah. So anytime like mainstream's talking about it, that's when they would be like, like, you need to be careful. Like, I heard China, is controlling crypto, and I'm just like, okay, because that threatens like our security clearances or stuff like that. But some people in the military were actually investing, and so they would, pull me aside or be like, hey. And then you've got people that just heard about it and they're like, tell me what to invest in, and I'm like, dude, I'm not a
Yeah.
financial advisor and I'm not doing that, but I'll
Right.
explain to you like what I have done and what I recommend you do. Um, so essentially, I told everyone about it. I bullied my family, my parents, my brother, like my close friends. I'm like, I'm not going to become rich by myself. And I would explain the technology to them. And then recently, like the last 2 years, I just decided, I've only been in for about four years, but I decided like if people want to know about it, they'll learn on their own. And so I just let people know like, hey, I'm into crypto. I'm into school right now for public affairs, public relations in the military. I just switched my MOS and I just mentioned to the class like, hey, is there anyone like into crypto? Only two people raised their hands. They're like, yeah, I'm into it. Like, I'd love to talk to you about it. Besides that, a couple people were like, hey, I want to know more about it, but
Mm.
I don't push it on people anymore. It's not for everyone. And some people, they me to be their first no, and they need to go through and experience what I experienced in 2017. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I love everything you said there, and the biggest key is that actually made me feel kind of warm inside was when you mentioned about how you started when you didn't understand money, because that was my journey over 8 years ago, where it was like, okay, I dismissed it for a while too, and then I was like, okay, we don't really understand how our money like how what is money? How does our money operate? We think we know what money is, but our whole life, all we've seen, most of us, like especially if we're U.S. based, right, is all just dollars, right? Dollars in, dollars out. And the only evolution we saw in money over time is going from checks to credit cards. And so I challenge people to start that journey too with understanding what money is and how our money operates, because I remember the epiphany for me in 2016 was, holy crap, I still don't understand this Bitcoin thing, but we've got problems with our money, and there's got to be a solution, because this problem is just getting worse as time goes on. Because I
Mhm.
went down the rabbit hole of not just the history of money, but studied the history of the Federal Reserve and how they operate, and then on top of that, junk in fractional reserve banking and how the banks operate. And it was like, oh, this is headed for a disaster. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think till people grasp that, they really don't understand, how can this digital thing that I can't see, I can't hold, I can't touch, how does it even have any value? They don't understand the attributes of money that would give it that. And like I said, like most of them think just, they only think of one currency usually, unless they travel to several different countries, and they know each country has their own money and there's exchange rates there, but they don't really understand how that happens, how that operates. Or and then most of them don't even understand, how does printing a bunch of money make inflation happen, right? They don't
right.
realize that in a global economy, the value that money can go down by that. So it's important to know. It's funny. I know. Have you ever played the game Sims or heard of Sims?
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
Gotcha. Yeah, same, similar. So I only played it briefly at a couple of friends' houses years ago, but I remember in Sims you can create your own economy, right? You can create your own world, your own economy, and you can even adjust the inflation rate. And there were basically complications if you didn't expand the currency enough, or if you overinflated the currency. And I think back to that, it's like how they should have put more emphasis on people understanding that, because that's the biggest problem we have today, is they don't understand what makes good money, bad money, um, or as some would say, hard money or easy money. Easy to produce is usually not good. Hard money, like has a fixed supply, is hard to create. I.e. Bitcoin. In the digital form, gold in the physical form. It's complex to either produce or to mine, generate or get a yield out of it. So, um, yeah, that's great to know. I mean, a lot of people that do come initially, like even if they're open to cryptocurrency, like you said, most people are like, "What do I buy? Where do I buy?" And I love the fact that you don't start there. I usually, it's the same thing. I can't really tell you your level of investment should match your understanding. I typically tell people start with Bitcoin, but make sure you understand it. So you understand it a little bit, you put a little money in it. And as you start to hold Bitcoin, your whole mindset will change, and then you're more open to learning more about it, reading more about it, listening about it, and then you realize what you can do there. So you mentioned a couple of things. So it wasn't really any kind of like any orders coming down that, hey, you had to stop this. It was just different people that you worked with that were kind of warning you to be careful with it.
Yeah, essentially, people, we get very arrogant and we think that we know things. But I like to think of crypto, as they were giving me these warnings, I was following Whalebot, I think. I think they had, back when it was Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
Whalebot had like a Twitter account. And so you would see like all the transactions over $1 million. And so I remember sitting there as like people were making fun of me because I was a nerd or because like, I'm playing with Chinese money. And I would just look at all the transactions that happened within the hour. And as time went by, the first year, I think it was like every couple hours, there would be like one transaction, and I'd be like, oh my God, like someone traded like, $2 million. And so, now it's almost impossible. I don't even look at it because I know the transactions are happening like minute by minute. And
Right.
so it was just really interesting that like the people that were explaining it to me, I just I thought back and I was like, when electricity came out, when computers came out, my father likes to say a lot, like what the people that were making computers, they were saying like no one will want a computer in their home. And now like
Yeah.
everyone I know has at least two. And so it's like all this new technology when automobiles came out and people were like, oh, this is a fad. They break down, they're slow, horses are reliable. And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, like I can understand that train of thought. Credit cards, people were like, a piece of plastic is supposed to be, my hard earned money. And then like, we just don't think about these things. And so as these people were, trying to discourage me, I just kept thinking like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I banked with Wells Fargo at the time. I went
Mm.
into the bank because Wells Fargo, I think it was 2020, they did like a chart of different asset classes or different adoption rates. I think they did color TV, automobiles, cell phones, internet, and it just showed like how many years of it estimated how many years it took them to get adopted. And so like electricity, I think it took like a decade. But if you
Oh
think
yeah.
about it, like if you go back and look, electricity, you used to have to do it yourself. And so it's like you have to learn about it. Then you have to find like what are you connecting it to?
Yeah.
It's not like there were like power plants all over the world. And so they had a lot of hurdles. And so I just kept thinking like this is a new asset class. I went to Wells Fargo, I saw their chart. I was like, hey, are you guys investing in cryptocurrency? And they were just like, oh my God, if that's what you're doing with your money, like, we can't talk to you about it. And I'm like, but you guys made a chart about it. And so it was this thing where, like, I would see, like, Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary, everybody knows him from Shark Tank. And these people would go on national new media and they would say like Bitcoin's a nothing burger, it's a scam. And then they would go on like people's private YouTubes a year later and be like, I was wrong, Bitcoin's
Yeah.
not what I thought it was. And it's like, yeah, well, go and tell the whole audience that you told it was a scam. And that's what they have in their minds. And so when people were saying that in the military, I was just like, they sound like these people and it's just a matter of time. And I don't want to, you know, take advice from someone who didn't even do research and
Hmm.
then miss out on a once in a lifetime opportunity to be some of the first people in a new asset class that could lead to generational wealth. I don't put a lot of money in crypto at one time. I like to dollar cost average. I recommend that people do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out and party on the weekend, why don't you just take that money that you're never going to see again and use that as the investment? And so that's what I've been doing, and it's worked for me so far.
I love it. I love it. Either you and I have gone through some of the same materials, or your mentors have gone through a lot of the same stuff because everything you said from dollar cost average, that's always the best way to start because if someone comes and they drop 10, 15, 20 grand into the market just in one spot, and that's a lot for them. I mean, it's a lot for most people, right? And then a week later, the market goes down, they're panicking. They're versus if I'm doing $50 a week that and I'm treating it like a 401k where I'm just buying every week no matter what the price is, then over time when you look back, I mean, and there's some tools for that. I don't know, have you ever seen the DCA BTC website?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna look that up.
So
Crypto people
DCA,
would talk about it though.
yeah, DCABTC.com. You can pick any time period, put how much you're investing and how frequently, whether it's every day, every week, every month, every 2 weeks, and it'll show you what that is worth today. And I show that to people all the time because my best performing, outside of the initial Bitcoin that I bought, my best performing investment has been Bitcoin, $50. I have it every Friday since 2017. January of 2017, I started setting up $50 a week going into Bitcoin. And if you look that up, it's done very well, right? And so when people are panicking over price movement, I'm like, why? You're not selling today or tomorrow. You said you were in this for the long term. So what does it matter what the price is today or tomorrow? If it goes up, yeah, I'm going to celebrate and be excited. If it goes down, hey, at least I know I'm buying more while it's down because I set that automation to where it's just buying every week. And that's what I like to teach people. Because it smooths out a lot of that volatility to where it doesn't matter whether the price goes up or down over the long term. You're doing really well. And even your part about technology adoption cycle, like I use the automobile, and they probably heard that because I mean Andreas Antonopoulos. Do you follow him at all?
No.
I guarantee you your mentors probably did. If you look up Andreas Antonopoulos on YouTube, I recommend everybody to do this. I mean, this guy is a guru when it comes to Bitcoin, has some amazing videos. He's been in it since early, and he does a lot of educational stuff. Even has the Internet of Money book series that I listen to Audible, and then also mastering Bitcoin, mastering Ethereum. So he's very much on the technical side, but he explains it to the everyday person like they can understand it. And he talks about technology adoption cycles, and we all look at those where we just get in the car and think, oh, it's common sense that we drive cars today. But when they first came out, you're right. Everything you mentioned, beside also there, there's dirt roads. There's no infrastructure for cars. So why would you even want a car? It's a death trap on wheels. And that's we just know what we do today. And same thing with the internet. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the headline from years ago that's been circulating recently, that's going viral, which says the internet is just a passing fad. So even once
Yep.
computers started to catch on, and when the internet was becoming more prevalent, people were like, oh, that's just a passing fad. Nobody's going to want to do that. And then shopping online happens, and nobody's going to want to put their credit cards online or buy stuff on a computer. And now where are we today? I mean, everything we buy is on a computer or from our phone, where it's like we press a button and it gets delivered to our door now, or we press a button and the driver shows up that you're trying to go somewhere with. It's funny. I told this joke. I was doing a talk about technology adoption cycles, and I talked about our parents used to tell us, "Don't get in the car with strangers, and don't meet weird people on the internet." And now we order a stranger on the internet to come pick us up in a car.
Wow, that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, yeah. So I always love that one, because it's like, don't do that. And now there's an app for that.
Yeah,
But
that's so true.
yeah, so love to hear it. The verification. We're on the right track. We're doing the right thing. You've got a lot of the same insights. So I challenge everybody to listen, learn, pay attention to what happens. Don't listen to the mainstream media. One of the things you mentioned, like I remember in 2017, Jamie Dimon with Chase Bank was just saying Bitcoin was a scam. Bitcoin was nothing. It was, just constantly talking bad about it. But what I saw too was at the same time, Chase Bank was they were investigating and building infrastructure to offer Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to their wealthiest clients to start with. Right. And it's like, wait, he's saying this and they're doing this. I would even bet that they were probably accumulating cryptocurrency at that time based on what we see now. But at the time, yeah, I had friends that worked at Chase Bank and they couldn't even talk about it. They couldn't say anything about it. They were forbidden from holding it. So they had a lot more roadblocks than you. I mean, you had some discouragement along the way, which I think we all did. But when it comes from an employer or a superior, it's you've got to have belief built that, hey, no, this is right, and that right mindset that you shared, right? If someone is giving you advice like that, oh, you should stay away from that because it's owned by China, you got to look at your source. Are they qualified to be talking? Do they know? Have they researched it? And do they know what they're talking about? Or are they just repeating like a parrot, like what they heard on the news and say, oh, no, the news said it's bad?
Yeah, I
So,
think like I said before, I think we get very arrogant. Like we're all using computers. I remember I was researching because I want to encourage people to start touching the earth because the benefits of the body. And so I was trying to figure out how to explain it. And so I discovered that vaccines, when they first came out, it was like the work of the devil. And so people were, demonizing vaccines. And, now it's like, oh, you didn't get vaccinated. And like, you know, all the technology that was demonized when it first came out, now everybody's using it. And we used it during 2020 when the world was on lockdown. Everyone was getting vaccines using their computers in their homes with internet. And, you know, it's crazy. And then, like you said, we were ordering strangers to do things for us, letting them in our houses, getting in their cars, trusting that they didn't do anything to our food. And it's just amazing. Like you have to do your own research. You have to know that in 10 years, when you realize, like, like, wow, if I had, you ever see those like investments, if you had put like $20 in Bitcoin or $10 in Ethereum, like this is where you would be now. And so you have to, no one's going to live your life but you. You have to know, I took time, we'll binge watch a series on the weekend, just take
right.
time and check and make sure, like, hey, I'm setting myself up. in the best situation and my future self will thank me. Or, hey, I know this is a scam because I did my own research and that's what I concluded. And I'm okay if I'm wrong. Like, if you can say
Right.
those
Yeah.
things, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to throw $50 at this. A lot of people tell me, well, I just don't understand it yet. I encourage you. Like, my dad, my mom was all in. My mom, like, she was just like, hey, I don't really understand this, but let's just do it. And she was just throwing money. And my dad, he was like, I'm only going to do this because you're my daughter and like I want to support you. But the more he started researching it, he was like, wow, this is, kind of something that could take off. And that kind of really encouraged me too. Having a different generation, they have their own experiences. Every generation's arrogant. We think we all know it all. The younger
Mhm.
generation is demonstrating that now. But our lifetimes are too short for us to understand like the historical events that have happened before that are going to happen again. And so having my dad and my mom in it and just learning from their life experiences and the inventions that they saw come and be implemented and how it changed really helped put things in perspective for me. And so I encourage you, like, have those conversations with family, not necessarily about crypto, but about money and how technology changed. And now we're looking at AI, and that's a whole nother thing that I think crypto and AI and blockchain are going to go hand in hand. I think they kind of have to, but
Right.
that's a whole nother. You should do a podcast on that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've already seen models of. I get so much better results out of decentralized AI models than
Mm.
your Chat GPTs and your other centralized sources. So definitely, definitely, yeah. That's definitely a topic for another day. Danae, one last question for you. So we met at Messari Mainnet last week, which was a cryptocurrency conference. Um, and so just question is why were you at Messari Mainnet and what did you get out of that experience?
I was there because I have never been to a cryptocurrency conference. I decided I wanted to go to one, but I wanted to go to one that didn't have a lot of hype. I felt like, even though I haven't been, so I can't speak on them, but I felt like there's a lot of hype around, like, oh, we're into cryptocurrency. This one, you paid a price to go, and I knew there'd be a lot of businesses there, people that were serious about building on the infrastructure, and I wanted to see what was going on, who was there, what they were talking about. And honestly, it built a lot of confidence in me that the research that I had done, I met a lot of people that came to those conclusions. They just took it a step further and made businesses. You're one of them. I just kind of, it built confidence. And I feel like it may change my path, the trajectory of my path. And I'm really excited. So I encourage people to go to those as well. There were people there that were never even in crypto. They just were, hey, I'm an accountant and I wanted to see what was happening. And so that was interesting as well because, crypto is getting a lot of serious attention, not necessarily speculative attention, but, people are seeing what it can do and they don't want to miss out and be a part of it. So that was my perspective, and it was an awesome experience. And I'm already planning my next crypto conference.
Awesome, awesome. Let me know which one that is. We'll definitely have to connect with that one. But that's great insight, and I definitely would challenge anybody and everybody if you can get to an event near you. Just, I mean, there's so many that are out there. Get in there and see what's doing because that was me in 2018. Was I finally was like for me it was like I'd been in a couple years, but then the market started this massive decline, and I was like, let me go make sure this is real and this is legit. And similar to you, I meet people that are building in the space and hopefully one day, Danae looks like, maybe you'll be working in the industry as well. So we'll see you at more events. So yeah, definitely would challenge everybody to check it out, see what's out there. There's so many different resources. And when you get around people that are going down that same journey as you have a lot more to talk about than if you're just sitting around friends and family and they don't get it yet and you feel like you're just talking to a wall. But I can tell you from experience, don't worry, they'll eventually come back. Some of them will apologize, so it just happens with time. All right. So, Danae, as we wrap up, any final words for anyone listening before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I would encourage them to simultaneously do their own research and dabble in the space. But I do recommend that no matter what you're doing in the crypto space, that if you do make an investment, start small, be consistent, keep doing your research, because just like in, the 1700s, when people would have banks, they had to make sure the banks didn't go out of business. That used to be a thing. So we're so early in the space. You want to, stay in the space, find out how to do your own research, go to the source, and then just get a notebook if you're investing and write down everything you're doing and keep the notebook in like a safe. So if something happens to you, your family, can benefit from all the work that you're doing. But besides that, you've got a great resource here, where you can learn and just get exposed. Even if you don't understand it, just listen to Wayne's podcast, and then eventually things will start making sense and you'll be like, oh, I know what that is, or I've heard that word before. So, but do your own research, read your own white papers, look at who's running these companies, and you'll start to figure out like, wow, it's not going away, guys. The technology has been around since like, I think the 80s. It's just not publicized. And so people have been developing this stuff since the 80s, and they want you to think it's new and that it's a scam, but do your research and you'll see a totally different story.
Awesome. Yeah, great advice. Thanks, Danei, again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on. It's time to wrap up. I feel like we could probably talk for another 25, 30 minutes, but we'll wrap it up here. Maybe get you back on for an update in the future just to see your journey, how it's evolved. But thanks again for joining us, and thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.